as well on Twitter, on our YouTube channel, on our website, all kinds of places to join us. There is a lot to get to today. Of course, is Columbus Day. And some will say, no, it's Indigenous Peoples Day and all of that. And I want to talk a little bit about that today because I want to ask a very simple question. Which of the indigenous peoples should we be honoring today? Because the lie and the myth that the media has begun to tell and the academics and the radical leftists have begun to tell that all Native American tribes were these peace-loving, kind and gentle souls who were just evilly destroyed and forced from their homes and all that kind of stuff is exactly that. It's a lie. It is a complete and total fabrication and an ignoring of history. There were some of the tribes that inhabited the North American plains and the North American continent that were much more brutal, much more disturbing and shockingly evil than anything Christopher Columbus and the European settlers ever even remotely engaged in. The horrors of the stories told about the Comanche and the Kiowa, some of the horrors told about the Sioux and other Native American tribes are, I mean, it is genuinely disturbing. Some of the things that were done, not by the European settlers, but by other Native American tribes to their compatriots, if you will, the various tribes, the things that they did to each other were some of the most horrifying and evil things that you can comprehend. Stories that would literally make your stomach turn if they were told today in all of the detail with which they were carried out. And so, while I do believe that we should honor many of the Native American tribes and their involvement and engagement with the settlers of North America from Europe over the years, many of the tribes were incredibly kind and generous and welcoming and worked in great concert and cooperation with the settlers and did all kinds of wonderful things, but not all of them. And in fact, the majority of them were not so kind and were not so compassionate and engaged in horrifying things. Like I said, not even so much against the European settlers, while that happened as well, it was more often what they did to each other. In fact, the Comanche were known for being essentially a conquering tribe. It was known as the Comanche Empire. They controlled most of what is now northern Mexico and the southwestern United States. They controlled the trade and all of the various routes and ways to travel through the area. And if you were not willing as a opposing tribe to follow their rules, they would simply commit genocide against you and your tribe. And the Comanche were known for being some of the most brutal and discompassionate people of the entirety of the North American continent. In ways, like I said, that would literally turn your stomach, the things that they were guilty of. And it wasn't just the Comanche. The Kiowa were often involved. If the Comanche were raiding somewhere, the Kiowa were not far behind. They were usually helping and allied with the Comanche. There were many others as well. But I want to talk a little bit about that today because I simply want to ask the question, which tribes should we be celebrating? Which indigenous peoples should we be honoring? Because if we can't honor Christopher Columbus for some of the things that he said and did, then it seems to me that we have to at least be morally consistent and refuse to honor any of the American tribes, the Native American tribes or indigenous peoples of North America, who engaged in much worse and much more horrifying things than Christopher Columbus ever even imagined. And so I think that's at least a fair question to talk about, or at least ask about on a day that we decide to celebrate this Indigenous Peoples Day discussion. So we'll get into that. There's a lot to talk about there. I do want to talk a little bit about the election as well. We're 24 days, something like that, out from the election. Maybe even less than that. I guess I'd have to look up I've got my online, how long until calculator, so I'll have to look it up. But, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks out. Next week starts early voting. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Early voting. Are you going to early vote? Are you going to get out and vote right away so you can maybe focus on helping any of your friends, get them to the polls, help them navigate the complications of finding a polling place or any of that kind of stuff? Not that it's that difficult, but are you going to go out and early vote? And I want to hear about your preferred candidates today. I went through and I logged on to the Secretary of State's website and checked out the sample ballot for my district. Of course, I'm in District 77, and so mine's maybe going to be different than yours if you're not in District 77. And I ran across. I was surprised. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I did not realize that I, as a citizen of the city of Little Rock, am also an inhabitant of the Big Rock Township. And so I get an opportunity to vote for the Big Rock Township Constable. And constables are an interesting elected official to me because we didn't have these. I lived in North Dakota for most of my life. We didn't have those in North Dakota. I don't remember ever voting for a quote-unquote constable in Colorado when I lived there while I was in college. And so I think this is more uniquely a Southern thing. I don't know if there's any other states outside of Arkansas that have constables. I would assume there are. But maybe it's just a quirk of Arkansas. And so I want to talk a little bit about the constable and the constable's races. There's a few of them around the state that are going to be up for election. Just want to kind of hear your thoughts on it and what you think, because as I understand it, the constable is not a paid position. There is no budget for a constable. If you are elected constable, you don't get to, nobody buys you a police car and a gun and a badge and a bulletproof vest. You're just the constable now. And so I would love to just kind of get the native Arkansan inside info, if you will, on constables, what they are, what they do. I went and read some of the Arkansas state code, the legislative century code that explains what the constables are and what they do and what requirements are of them and all of that. But it doesn't really kind of tell the practical story, the more realistic what a constable actually does in the real world. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Like I said, I want to hear some of your thoughts on your preferred candidates, depending on what district you're in, what races that you would really like to tell your friends. It's kind of your opportunity to use the Schmidt Show platform to advocate for your favorite candidate, whether it's a judge, a constable, a representative, depending on your district, or a state senator or whatever. I just want to hear your thoughts on it. and give you a chance to. I'm not going to necessarily argue with you because there's a lot of these candidates that I'm not going to know much about, that aren't going to be in my district, that I'm not going to be able to vote for or against or whatever. So I'm not going to argue with you. I just kind of want to hear you, give you an opportunity to share your preferred candidate outside of Trump and all of that, and walls, and outside of the presidential races and the national races. I want to hear kind of the local stuff on that. So we'll get into that and a whole lot more as we continue with the Schmidt Show next on News Radio 1029 KARN. Welcome back once again to the Schmidt Show here on News Radio 1029 KARN. I'm your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276. If you want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion, weigh in on any of the things we're talking about today. And like I said, there's a lot to get to. I want to hear about your candidates, who your preferred candidates for the various races are. Let's talk a little bit about Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. I just don't think we should eliminate Columbus Day. I really don't. And I get that there's some issues with Christopher Columbus and his treatment of people over his journeys through the Americas, but a lot of what is told about Christopher Columbus just isn't true. He was not this genocidal maniac who was hoping to murder all indigenous peoples for fun and profit for all eternity. And there is a lot of lies and misinformation about Christopher Columbus, but there's also a lot of lies and misinformation about the native peoples as well. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But also, I want to talk about local elections for sure, and hear your thoughts on the various races and who you may or may not be supporting in the upcoming races. Let's go to Bobby in Little Rock first. Bobby, you're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind? Are you with me, Bobby? No? All right. Well, let's, I guess we'll put Bobby back on hold. Let's try Liz in Hot Springs. Liz, you're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind?
Yes, for Arkansas Supreme Court Chief Justice Rhonda Wood.
Okay.
She is most like Alito Supreme Court, Samuel Alito.
Yeah, yep.
She's a constitutionalist. Yes.
I believe
our Constitution.
I believe Robert Steinbuck agrees with you on that as well, and says that he really likes Rhonda Wood also.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. I appreciate it, Liz. Thank you. 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. Try Bobby one more time. Bobby, you with us this time? Nope. All right. Well, we'll try that again. I'm not sure what happened to Bobby. We had you there, Bobby. If you're still listening, give us a call back. We do want to talk to you. We do want to hear your thoughts. But I'm not sure how we lost you there. Maybe bad connection or something. But 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. Like I said, there's some interesting races outside of the big ones, of course, the national races of the presidency and the district. I'm in District 2, so my race is between Congressman French Hill and Marcus Jones. The state treasurer's race, I think, is an incredibly interesting one. John Pagan, the Democrat, running against Michael Packow, the Libertarian and current Secretary of State, who is now working to office hop over to the Treasurer's office, John Thurston. And so that race is a very, very interesting one because as much as I hate to admit this, Dr. Packow and John Pagan are both supremely more qualified than John Thurston for this position. And Michael Packow, in my opinion, is one of the most qualified individuals to have ever run for secretary or for state treasurer anywhere. I mean, and that's not necessarily an endorsement or anything like that, but just looking at his credentials, he's got a PhD in economics. He's been the official state economic forecaster for the state of Arkansas for several years now. He is widely understood to be the expert on the Arkansas economy and has been for a couple of decades now. John Thurston, he was the Secretary of State. Before that, I believe he was the Ag Commissioner. And there's really not much in John Thurston's background that qualifies him to be the state treasurer, except that he is part of the Republican establishment. And so I think we've got a real opportunity to elect someone who is liberty-minded and focused on the genuine qualifications that are important in a treasurer's race. So that one's going to be interesting. I don't know how that one's going to play out, but I think there are a lot of people that kind of recognize that John Thurston, while he may be a Republican in a very, very red state, is quite possibly the least qualified of any of the three candidates running. So I get a vote, like I said, for the constable's race. I'm curious to hear kind of in reality from some of you native Arkansans what the constable job looks like. So in my township, I live in the city of Little Rock, and so I guess I never really made the connection that I was also part of the Big Rock Township. And so I get a vote for the constable. There's a Republican by the name of Walter Stormer and a Libertarian by the name of Frank Gilbert that are both running for the constable's position. And like I said, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on what exactly the constable does in reality. Like I said, I went and read, because I wanted to find out. I went and read the Arkansas Century Code and what it talks about with constables, and I get the logistics of it. I'm just not sure how it plays out in reality. So 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276 is the phone number if you want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion. Got a couple more phone calls to get to here, some more text messages as well. But we are getting close to the 2:30 news break. So we're going to have to do that first. Then we'll come back. We'll talk with Greg. We'll talk with Kyle. We'll get to some of your text messages and weigh in on some of that discussion as we celebrate Columbus Day today. How many of you are off? Do we still get people do we still close things down? Do you still get vacation days on Columbus Day, or did we officially change it to Indigenous Peoples Day yet? I don't know how any of that works. So we'll continue with the Schmidt Show next on News Radio 102.9 KRN. Welcome back once again to the Schmidt Show here on News Radio 1029 KARN. I'm your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276 if you want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion. One texter says it should be called Leif Erikson Day. The Norse founded Vinland 500 years before Columbus landed in North America. Yeah, and there are some that are actually getting into this discussion, and there's some research that is being done that suggests that the Vikings or their ancestors, the Norse people of whatever descendancy, may have actually even traveled to North America as many as 200 or 300 years prior to Leif Erikson doing it. That's a little more controversial. And I don't know that it's certainly not a mainstream historical view, but they're finding more and more evidence that the Norse people, whether it was Vikings or whatever, may have traveled much further inland in North America, down through like Hudson, what's now Hudson Bay, and all of that. Maybe even before Leif Erikson got there in what was it, like I think it was 1000 AD or something like that, or 900 AD, whenever Leif Erikson got around to it. But there actually is a Leif Erikson Day. I think it's in May. It's just not celebrated very widely. So we'll get into that discussion as well. Let's go to, sorry, brain fart there. Greg in North Little Rock. Greg, you're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mr. Brad.
Hey, how we doing?
We was talking about the indigenous people.
Yes.
And how severe they were, like the Apaches, and up in the north where you and I grew up, the Blackfoot and everything else.
Yep. The Sioux.
Okay. The Sioux, yeah. Okay, so now, before, Columbus came here, and don't forget about Magellan, because Magellan was in between Leif Erikson and Columbus.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, but before Columbus came over here, did they not have when a tribe went to war? If you grew up in the Dakotas,
mm-hmm.
You know how in the reservations that when the reservations, but they weren't reservations at that time.
Right, yeah.
When the tribe went to war, they did not kill everybody. They took women and children to be, servants.
Right.
So did that not create slavery before slavery was ever thought of?
Yeah, it absolutely did. I mean, and not necessarily before slavery. I mean, slavery's been around for, thousands of years, but
thousands of years.
Right.
But in North America.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that we do know about the Comanche here in the South they had in one of the things that they would do is if they would conquer a tribe, they would generally keep the women for just for sex slaves. That was it. And that was the only reason that they would keep them. The men were usually forced to work until they either were no longer capable of working, or if they were a distraction, they would just kill it. There's a story about I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but it was a co-settler with Cynthia Ann Parker, who was captured by the Comanche in 1836, and she was pregnant at the time, and so when her baby was born, she was essentially a slave for the native women, and would do their laundry and cooking chores and things like that. And because the native women believed or got the sense that this new baby that was born in captivity was a distraction from her getting her work done, they just killed the baby, a 6-week-old baby. Yeah. They just slaughtered it because it was inconvenient to them.
Yes. And, when one native tribe, conquered another, and they brought the women and children in to, do the servant work in the, slavery style situation, that's where we got the, hello?
Yeah, no, you're here.
Okay, sorry. my phone just went crazy on me.
No, you're right.
That's where we got. That's where we got the word. And I don't want to sound mean or crude or anything. This is where the name half-breed came from.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, there's just a lot about, like, say, I'm all for, because not all of the tribes were these warring, horrifying.
The Cherokee and the Arapaho, and the Inuits and everything up in northeastern. Yeah, they're not. They was never that way.
I believe the Arikara were a generally peaceful people as well. There's lots of them.
The Iroquois were awesome.
Yeah, and so there's the question that I simply ask, and Greg, I appreciate the call, is if we're going to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, which tribes? Because that's an important discussion to have. Because the Comanche people and the way they treated other Native Americans is not something that we should honor or glorify. It is something that should be condemned. They were a terrible, terrible, genocidal, maniacal society. 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. Kyle in Malvern, you're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind?
Hey, you're talking about the constables. You don't know what to vote for?
Well, no, I mean, I know what they are, and I went through and kind of read the Arkansas Century Code, so I know in practicality what they are, but like in real life, what does it look like? What does a constable actually do?
All right, well, as an elected official, as a constable, in his district, he has the same power as a sheriff in his district.
Okay.
He can walk around. He can go on a crime scene, do anything. The cops show up. Sheriff shows up. They can't put him directing traffic or anything like that. He has a part there as an elected official.
Okay.
Now, outside of his territory, nothing, unless the sheriff decides to deputize them and use them as extra deputies. In Arkansas County, a couple of years back, the sheriff down there would deputize the constables, put them through the reserve deputy training, and 2 or 3 nights a week, they got a car and they patrolled.
Ah, okay.
That would get some of his deputies off because Arkansas County is the biggest county in Arkansas. It's huge. It's mostly rural. And depending on the sheriff in the county, if he wants to use his constables, he'll deputize them, put them through training, get them up, and do all kind of things with them.
Gotcha. So it is. I mean, and according to the Century Code, that there's various requirements. You know, if you're a constable and you want to carry a gun, you have to go through a certain amount of training and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of got the sense that it is a I don't want to say minor because I think that belittles the office, but it's a more minor, that's the only word I can come up with, a more minor law enforcement position. Does that sound?
Well, when the state was founded, they had constables. They didn't have deputies. They had constables.
Right.
And they would go in, and the sheriff needed a posse. He would swear in all his constables. He'd do the same thing with the local cops would do the same thing. If you live in a city that's got over 50,000 people in it, the constable in that township could actually get a deputy. That's in the rules. Gotcha. So it depends on what local law enforcement wants you to do.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, and it looks like it looks like it's an unpaid position. You're not running for constable to get that cushy government pension.
No, it's $1 a year. It takes $50 every 2 years to get that $1 a year. But most of them, in some counties, depending on what their retirement program is, if you have a trooper that retired and he became a sheriff, he gets an extra 3 or 4 years retirement for every year he serves as sheriff. The same thing goes as a constable. If a sheriff that retired wants more retirement years or more retirement time, he can go ahead, depending on what retirement plan they're on, where it's APIS or whatever.
Right.
They can get it and just serve as a constable because you're serving as an elected official.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Kyle, I appreciate you shedding some light on that, and I'm sure other folks will weigh in as well, but I'm up against the break here. I appreciate the call. We will continue with the Schmidt Show. We'll talk to Ken and Michael next on News Radio 102.9 KRN. Welcome back once again to the Schmidt Show here on News Radio 1029 KARN. I am your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. Texter says, I thought Cynthia Ann Parker was a young girl when she was captured, according to the book Empire of the Summer Moon. Maybe I'm wrong. No, she was. I believe she was 8 years old, but there was another woman who was captured at the same time, and I couldn't remember her name. I went and looked it up. It was Rachel Plummer. She was the one. She was pregnant at the time of being taken captive, and she was the one who had her child, 6-week-old child, murdered because she was just basically too slow to accomplish the tasks that she was given by the Comanche women as their slave. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276. I've got some information. We'll get to that story in a minute. But Ken and Cabot first. You're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind?
Hey, man, I'm just piddling around because I'm off on this Columbus Day. It is a beautiful day. Hey, I've got a thought that is pertinent, I believe, and important.
Okay.
Are you a baseball fan?
A little bit. I mean, I haven't followed it for quite a while, but I mean, yeah, I like watching baseball from time to time.
All right. Well, tonight is the American League Championship Series between the Guardians and the Yankees.
Okay.
And I feel that perhaps the New York Yankees, due to their privilege, just evidenced by their team's budget, should probably forfeit the game to the Guardians, who were forced to renounce their name of the Cleveland Indians due to some woke white DEI people in New York City. I think it would only be appropriate on Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if I've shared this story a lot, but I've talked a little bit about it before. My stepdad's mom would be my grandmother. Her brother married a woman named Eunice, who is a full-blood Sioux member of the Sioux tribe, and Eunice Davidson was her name, and she wrote a book called Aren't We Sioux Enough? And it's all related to the UND Fighting Sioux nickname and all of this, and it's a long story, but I say that, I give that background to point out that this is a woman, like I said, full-blood Native American Sioux tribe, and she has fought vigilantly for decades to try to maintain some of these team names like the Redskins, the Indians, and the Braves, and the UND Fighting Sioux, and some of these, because her view of it was that this is an effort by the kind of the woke crazies on the left to erase the Native American culture from history, just to essentially force them into the trash heap of history, so we don't have to talk about them anymore. And so she's fought very hard. Like I said, even wrote a book about it, on how this leftist ideology of changing the names of all of these teams and things is not to protect Native Americans, but simply to erase them from the cultural discussion, and so that we don't have to talk about them anymore.
She could team up with Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima's family and try and bring some respect back to the people, man.
Yeah.
Brad, you have a blessed afternoon, my friend.
You too. I appreciate the call, man. Have a good one. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276. Michael in Saline County, you're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind?
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Schmidt.
Hey.
It is a beautiful day here in central Arkansas.
It really is.
Yes, it is. I wanted to talk about Columbus Day, to shout out to all my the Sicilian and Italian friends. I'm having spaghetti tonight in celebration of it. But you were talking about the Vikings in America. I'm of Scandinavian descent, mostly. And there's a very interesting place just over the border from Arkansas into Oklahoma. It's called Viking Ruins. And it's a state park in Arkansas, and there are some ruins that have been carved into rock-type stelae in that area off the Poteau River. And I can't speak to the authenticity that they are real. But it's an interesting theory that the Vikings came all the way up the Arkansas and went up the Potomac and that had some type of that time there to strike ruins in a rock.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Well, wasn't there
significant.
a Viking ship found in like somewhere along the Mississippi River somewhere, or am I misremembering that?
I'm not familiar with that. They found a old Indian canoe made out of gum tree here on the Saline.
Oh, okay.
And they have it in a museum now. Well, on display. I think it's down at the senior center or where they have the pool at in Benton.
Gotcha.
But anyway, that's something to see. Yeah, they might have been here. It could have been, but I'm just going to say oofda for that. And I'm having spaghetti tonight. A happy Columbus Day to you, sir.
Michael, I appreciate the call as always. Have a good one. 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. We'll wrap up the 2 o'clock hour with Emily Ruth. Emily, it's good to hear from you again. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I just want to say my vote goes to Rhonda Wood. Another thing, there are Viking ruins been found in Missouri years ago. And, our Arkansas State University used to be called the Indians. And several years ago, it was changed to Red Wolf, taking the Indian off. I was fishing up there about that time, and I saw people with T-shirts on saying, "I'll always be an Indian." If you're in doubt, go to Acts, the 17th chapter, and read. You'll find that God said that we all have the same blood, no matter what we look like. So have a safe, blessed week.
Emily, I appreciate the call. Great way to end the hour, and I think there is some very astute wisdom in that. We're all humans in the end, regardless of the color of our skin or the race or our ethnic heritage. We are all humans, and that's the thing that should really kind of keep us unified. So we'll continue with the Schmidt Show next on News Radio 102.9 KRN. Welcome back once again to the Schmidt Show here on News Radio 1029 KARN. I'm your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276 if you want to join the conversation, be a part of the discussion here. And several folks have been asking about issue 2 in Arkansas here. And I brought this up on Friday. We talked a little bit about this and talked about the issue 2 discussion. And there's actually from the University of Arkansas, I believe it's the University of Arkansas Business School. No, it says University of Arkansas, Division of Agriculture, Research and Extension. They put out a voter's guide that's actually pretty good. I got to be honest, oftentimes university stuff is radically left leaning, but this guide does a pretty good job of laying out what it means and what it's all about. And so let's talk a little bit about issue 2. As we're only a week away from early voting kicking off. Next Monday, the 21st, is when early voting starts. So issue 2, as proposed by a petition of the people. It says, repealing Pope County casino license and requiring local elections. It says the popular name is, and I quote, an amendment requiring voter approval in county-wide special election for certain new casino licenses and repealing authority to issue a casino license in Pope County, Arkansas. So that's the popular name. The ballot title itself is a little bit more complicated, but I'm going to read it. It's complicated language or it's confusing language, but I just want to read it so you're all aware of it. So this is what you'll see on your ballot, and I've got my sample ballot up here. So the ballot title is as follows: an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution, Amendment 100, Section 4, subsection I, to reduce the number of casino licenses that the Arkansas Racing Commission is required to issue from 4 to 3. Amending Amendment 100, Section 4, subsections K through N, to repeal authorization for a casino in Pope County, and to repeal the authority of the Arkansas Racing Commission to issue a casino license for Pope County. Amending Amendment 100, Section 4, to add subsection S, providing that if the Arkansas Racing Commission or other governing body issues a casino license for a casino in Pope County, Arkansas, prior to the effective date of this amendment, then said license is revoked on the effective date of this amendment, amending Amendment 100, Section 4, to add subsection T, providing that if a future constitutional amendment authorizes the issuance of a casino license in any county other than those issued now or hereafter for Crittenden County to Southland Racing Corporation, Garland County to Oakland Jockey Club, and Jefferson County to Downstream Development Authority of Quapaw Tribe of Oklahoma, and later transferred to Saracen Development, LLC, then the quorum court of each county where a casino is located shall call a special election by ordinance to submit the question of whether to approve of a casino in the county. It's not done yet. Amending Amendment 100, Section 4, to add subsection T 1 through 3, setting the date for the special election, requiring the ordinance calling the special election to state the election date and to specify the format of the question of the ballot as, quote, for a casino in county and against a casino in county, and the question is presented to the voters must include whether or not a casino may be located in the county. A casino is defined as a facility where casino gaming is conducted. Again, not done yet. There's more. it's almost comical how much of a mess this is. Amending Amendment 100, Section 4 to add subsection T4, requiring the County Board of Election Commissioners to publish the ordinance calling the special election as soon as practicable in a newspaper of general circulation in the county in which the special election is held. And there's more. Amending Amendment 100, Section 4 to add subsection T5, requiring a majority of those in the county who vote at the election in certain counties where a future casino is proposed to be located to approve of the casino at the special election before the Arkansas Racing Commission or governing body may accept any applications for a casino license in that county, making this amendment effective on or and after November 13, 2024, providing that the provisions of this amendment are severable in that if any provision of the section of this amendment or the application thereof to any person's circumstances held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect any other provision or application that can be given effect without the invalid provision and application, and repealing all laws or parts of laws in conflict with this amendment. That's the official ballot title. Now, all of that complicated language and mess, what does it mean? What does it actually do? So what this means is a for vote, and this is the important part, the for and the against. A for vote means you want to change the Constitution to remove the Pope County Casino gaming license from the Arkansas Constitution. And if in the future any amendments authorizing additional casino license must be approved by a statewide vote, requiring a special election and approval of voters in the county where the casino would be located to approve it. So essentially, if you vote for it, it means that you want to do away with the Pope County Casino gaming license that has been approved, and you want to make sure that any future casino license must be approved locally. That's what the for vote does. The against vote means that you don't want to change the Constitution. You want to leave the Pope County gaming license in effect, and the Arkansas Constitution would stay the same. And if in the future any casino license would be approved by a statewide vote, a special election and approval of voters in the local county would not be required. So that's the for and against. And so that's the basics of this. For does away with Pope County Casino, requires local approval of any future casino license. Against leaves the Pope County Casino license in effect and does not require local votes in the future. Now, some of the statements for and against, a lot of the people that are leaning on the against side are saying that the for vote is actually a bunch of out-of-state money and out-of-state interests that are trying to get this to move forward for whatever reason, because it affects their potential future casino options. They maybe have money invested in the Pope County Casino license already, and if this gets passed, they would potentially lose their investment, and they would no longer be able to move forward with the casino that they've got planned in Pope County. And this is the out-of-state folks trying to make sure that the Pope County Casino gets ended because it would compete with their casino, is on the for side. So 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. I hope I've made that clear. I'm not sure that I did, but John in Hot Springs Village, you're on the Schmidt Show on KRN.
Hey, Brad, how are you?
I'm well.
Good. So my question is, speaking of Columbus/Indigenous Day,
right?
Would in favor of the casino, would this open the floodgates for indigenous casinos where they pay no taxes but they drain the economy?
So a 4 vote would not. A 4 vote means that any casino that would attempt to come into Arkansas would require a local. So if we wanted to build a casino here in Pulaski County or Saline County or Faulkner County or whatever, any of the local counties, Lone Oak, whatever, that would require those of us living in the county voting to approve it before any casino could be built. An against vote would not require a local vote. It would only require the current situation, which would be a statewide vote.
So that they've made this very complicated.
Yes.
That's why they're called lawyers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I guess I have an issue with the tribes don't pay taxes, but they make hundreds of millions of dollars off the local people in the community, and they don't pay taxes on it.
Yeah, and I don't know how the taxes work. I don't know because there's different. Each state and each tribe and each casino seems to have different rules and all that kind of stuff. So I can't really speak to the taxes side of it.
Right.
But yeah, if there's a tax exempt situation, I think that should be ended for all casinos. I don't think whether it's native tribes or whether it's a casino owned by a white dude in Las Vegas. I don't think anybody should get any sort of tax breaks. So, John, go ahead.
The Democrats always continually talk about the rich people have to pay their fair share. The corporations have to pay their fair share. But these casinos, hundreds of millions drain from communities, and they pay nothing.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
No, I don't either, John. I don't either. I appreciate the call. I do got to run. I'm up against the break. We will continue with this discussion in just a moment on News Radio 102.9 KARN.